Today I'm making a presentation on this person called Joao Carlos Dacosta, who's a 29-year-old boy. He's a non-verbal autistic adult from Portugal, and he's written these two books, Autism, A New Perspective, and this other Portuguese book. And he has said some extraordinary things in his writings, in these books, and also in social media. And I have taken out excerpts from his various social media posts, and we will study it because they are truly brilliant. Now, one of the things which Joao talks about is how people talk to him, how poor the way people approach him. He says what happens often is that the diagnosis makes the person invisible, especially in situations of high severity. If an autistic person is non-verbal and has communication difficulties, there is a strong tendency to think that the autistic person does not understand and does not think or feel and is a big baby. The tendency is to talk to him or about him as if he were an eternal child. Now, this is so true. So many adults, even parents and family members who know a lot about autism, still tend to talk to and talk in front of their children as if they are small children, even if they are adults. And this is so demeaning for a person with autism. Then he says on medical issues. In health, the label of autism is also in a certain way nullifies the individual because any change in the autistic tends to be justified in the light of autism. See, if there's any ill health, there is any pain, everything is given. The reason for it is given as autism. So the only speciality that the autistic person has to go to is psychiatry, whereas they forget that an autistic person can have abdominal pain or painful teeth as well. That's what he says. Beside the aforementioned, and no less important than everything else, is society to remember that we also have feelings and emotions, fears and anxieties that must be accepted and valued. In all areas of life, it's important to remember that we are more than the autism diagnosis. This is his own words. He has himself written these words, and we need to see that this is the voice of all autistic children and adults. Then he says about parental attitude. Conscious parents do not fall into victimization or constant lamentation. They do not systematically punish themselves and others, believing that misfortune and unhappiness have knocked on their door. Autism demands that we all grow in love. This means that parents must transform and not conform. See, this is another thing that it's almost like parents begin to feel that that's it, their lives have ended with this diagnosis of their child, and they live in a sort of a permanent mourning state, which is completely wrong, because autism is teaching you to be a different kind of person, a person who can love and grow in love, as Joao says. Then, on what autism really is. Autism is an invitation to love, he says. It is a condition that does not tolerate pretense and puts love, in the true sense of the word, to the test. So, there is no pretense in autism. You can't pretend around an autistic person. You have to be yourself. Then, on prejudice thinking, he says, the conditioning of humanity begins very early. When we reincarnate, we receive, even in early childhood, energy that is not our own and beliefs that no one questions, which essentially serve to program or shape individuals to act like sheep in the same flock. See, we all get conditioned. That's what Krishnamurti also said, and we're all conditioned even without us knowing we are conditioned. We think that a certain type of person is only normal, a certain type of behavior is only normal. And if anything different from that happens, then we immediately put labels on that and we do not think anymore about it. Then he says, talks about his body, and here he's telling you about autism, and you can understand the deep difficulty which an autistic person has, that is on having an uncooperative body. He says, dear friends, some time ago a mother complained that her child was very restless and never stayed still or calm. This type of behavior is very common in autistic individuals and happens to me as well. There are days when I feel more at ease, but there are others when I'm more agitated and can't stay still because of my brain and the ideas I want to release from my head, which in turn seems like an iron capsule that suffocates and imprisons them. Besides this discomfort, my body sometimes feels like a heavy, numb log with a kingdom of ants inside it. This leads me to the need to run and jump wildly to relieve the internal hell and achieve some well being. To those observing us, we may seem crazy and messy, but it is as if we are resetting the system and for a few moments achieving some well being. So, when an autistic person is doing all this, we should let him do all that because that helps him to calm down. Because something is happening inside him which we don't understand. That is what he's trying to say. Then he continues, therefore, if you have an autistic person with this type of behavior, accept it and understand their need to seek balance and well being. The autistic person has a set of physical dysfunctions that make them appear bizarre to others, but most of the time, these behaviors are not voluntary. That means that the child or person is not doing it because he wants to do it. He can't help doing things like that. He can't help it. That is the main point on why the soul takes birth as an autistic person. What does Joao say here? He says, the souls who agreed to come to this planet with autism and the challenges that this entails want to help humanity become aware of the need to return to authenticity, genuineness, and respect for nature. Autism wants humanity to reassess its path and way of being on the planet. It aims to draw attention to the air, food, and relationships so that they become more transparent and genuine. I think this is beautiful because we live in an age where there's so much artificiality and being genuine, that is the message. Then he says about depression. Dear friends, today I decided to write about depression since it can affect anyone regardless of their medical condition. When one is autistic, they can also be affected by mental health issues. Although there is a tendency to overlook this fact and attribute any changes in behavior to autism. The tendency to overemphasize autism can lead to delayed or missed diagnosis when we are expecting challenging times. The awareness of being depressed may also be hampered by the fact that autistic individuals often have a consistent way of expressing themselves. For example, in my case, even though I don't necessarily have a neutral expression, I don't frequently laugh openly or cry. Laughing or giggling isn't common either, making depressive phases harder to detect. However, like everyone else, I have lived through moments of prolonged anguish and sadness due to feeling misunderstood, forgotten, or seen as a person of little value. Despite being autistic and perceiving or feeling reality differently, it doesn't mean we don't experience fear, anguish, and a range of happy or less happy emotions and feelings. So pay attention to the eyes of the autistic individual because they are also the mirror of what goes on in their souls. So autistic in children, adults can also be depressed. Then on an anxious phase. What I feel during this phase is an enormous internal restlessness, both physical and mentally both physically and mentally. My body vibrates as if it were connected to a power station, and my brain seems to travel at a high speed in an uncontrolled manner on a highway. I try to control it, but the discomfort keeps increasing, and I try to gain control over my body and mind by jumping or standing up when I am at the table, standing up when I am at the table as well. I also frequently go to the bathroom. So these are the effects of anxiety in a child, in a person with autism. Then on love, he says, love, first of all, is an energy with a vibration of peace and tranquility. True love is crystalline, like water, and flows smoothly around obstacles without noise or fireworks. How beautiful this definition is. Then he says, on the disconnection between his mind and body. Dear friends, I want to talk to you about the importance of not judging the abilities of autistic people, especially non speaking people, having their performance levels as a sole basis. I say this because there is also a disconnection between the body and mind. In my case, I can say I have a very good degree of understanding of everything around me. And I'm told, however, my response is far less than expected. This leads people to thinking that I don't know or don't understand. This conclusion is wrong because because the production or execution in this case is not aligned. That is, he's not able to prove that he can understand. My brain runs the remote, but my body stays intact like a rebellion. As you will understand, a great inner frustration and sadness generates in me when I see certainty of others built on the basis of ignorance. When people are certain that they have labeled me or they have judged me in a certain way, how sad he must feel when he can see that. Now, this is his writing, and he writes mainly in English. And when he writes, his mother has to touch his arm. That is called facilitated communication, and this is very common in autism. This is because persons with autism don't feel connected to their physical body. So when someone touches their hand or arm, they feel that connection. Now, on being sensitive, he says, the autistic person feels and absorbs everything around them as they are endowed with great sensitivity and able to perceive misalignments or deviations with their heart. They feel and absorb the energy of harmony and disharmony around them, and consequently, their well being improves or deteriorates. So they can feel the vibrations of a room. That is what it is saying. And this is how he writes. This is his mother's hand. His mother's hand needs to touch his arm, and that's how he feels his arm, and that's how he writes. So this is the end of this talk, and please Google on Facebook or on Instagram Joao Carlos Dacosta. You will see his beautiful writing and get to know a wonderful adult. Do not label him autistic. See his soul, see his beautiful writings and thinking. Thank you so much.